the transient, it's a little bit different of a business model. I don't really like that. I haven't owned it, so I guess I can't really say, but just looking at it from a 10,000 foot view, I don't know. I just don't really like that, but the long-term aspect of it, I really like.
You're listening to Ice Cream with Investors, a podcast that is dedicated to teaching you how to better invest your money so that you can live a more intentional life. I'm your host, Matt Four, and it is my goal to teach and empower you to remove the roadblocks to your financial success.
All right, Derek, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Matt. Excited to be here with a fellow Virginian.
That's right.
I love it, man. Excited.
That's right. We were nerding out about Virginia, Civil War, and NASCAR beforehand. So you're true,
NASCAR, baby.
You're a true Virginian if you can get all three of those in a single conversation.
Absolutely, 100%.
Well, we'd like to start our show here with the difficult questions. What's your favorite ice cream?
Man, I just love ice cream, but I guess if I had to pick, it would be it's a raspberry cream ice cream at this mom and pop place in Virginia, actually. And you would never think raspberry ice cream is good, but at this place, that's it. So I would say that raspberry ice cream is my favorite.
I mean, you got to give it a call out. Where in Virginia is it? What's the name of it?
So it's in Harrisonburg, Virginia. It's called Klein's Ice Cream. I'm telling you, if you think raspberry ice cream, all that sucks, I would think that too until you have raspberry ice cream at this place, and your world's gonna change.
It's funny you said that. So I live in Nashville, and right above Nashville, there's a city called Portland, which is a really, really small town. And one time we stopped there on the way home and found this ice cream shop. It was by far the best ice cream I've ever had in my life. So small town, local mom and pops, probably the best ice cream you're ever going to have.
For sure.
Well, tell our listeners, what's the scoop? What do you do today?
Yeah, so Victory Real Estate Group. So we own and operate mobile home parks. We're currently looking and acquiring new deals. We have new deals in the pipeline that we're acquiring. We're, obviously raising money from investors. We are, I have Park Investing Pros. That's the mentorship program that I have where I mentor people into getting their first mobile home park acquisition, taking them all the way from learning the basic all the way up to, as you're going through the program, your confidence is building to where, hey, we can confidently send LOIs, we can confidently send contracts, but we're really helping people that don't know what they're doing or don't even, know where to start, get their first deal.
Gotcha. Now, you didn't start in real estate, so take us back. Where did your real estate journey begin?
So it actually began, I was in the insurance business. And the particular business I was in, it was really tough. I had to make cold calls every day. So first I moved to Florida with $300 in my pocket, no money, and decided to get in all 100% commission sales. What kind of lunacy was going through my head to think that? And so I did that and ended up, doing really well, and ended up getting good at it after I struggled for years and made no money. I ended up building a team of over 100 salespeople. We were doing really well, but then I realized that I was in a business that I wasn't building any equity in. Yes, I had renewals, and yes, I was running the business. I was the entrepreneur, but the company owned the book of business, so I couldn't sell it. And we were killing it. We're doing well. And I started to get pissed about that, to be completely honest with you. And if you rewind, this was in 2000, getting 2019, 2020, 2021 when I started to see that. Because when I started buying real estate, I was actually still in the insurance business for about a year. But backing up to 2015, now before this, I started because I was sucking in the insurance business. So I started to really get into personal development because I just had some really low points where I was like, dude, you got to get it together. And I started doing personal development and things and started learning about sales, learning stuff from Grant Cardone. And then he started talking about real estate. And before this, I always thought that guy you see it's worth $100 million or $200 million. I thought that he would get a W-2 that said he made $100 million a year. which wasn't the case.
Not quite.
This was all
Yeah, not
wealth
quite.
building. And so I learned, if anybody knows, Grant used to do those Real Estate Monday shows for an hour every Monday. So much freaking value. But I learned, like, oh my God, yeah, these guys build wealth through real estate. So I started underwriting apartment deals in 2015, learned quickly. I'm like, man, I couldn't even, 20 million bucks for a deal in Orlando. I'm looking in Orlando, right? And I want scale. So I started underwriting deals and realized, man, I'm not ready for this. I got to go make some more money first. So I was still looking at deals through that. I don't know how deep you want me to go into this, but I'll keep going here and make it as short as possible. We could drag it out if you want. But 2020 happened. COVID happened. And our sales went down inevitably. We were in Florida. Florida was still kind of open, but not really. No one wanted to buy insurance. Nobody cared about buying insurance at that point, right? So I was like, man, I got to get this real estate thing going. And so I had a friend who had invested in mobile home parks. I actually was like, hey, man, let me invest in some of your deals. And I was like, I got like 50 grand. And he was like, he essentially, without saying it, said, you don't have enough money to invest with me. And I'm like, screw you, dude. I'm going to go do this shit myself then. So I found a list. Of mobile home parks in Florida and started cold calling them. I mean, I had cold called for years. So this was nothing to me because I was used to calling you, Matt, and saying, hey, will you buy something from me? And now this was the reverse flow. This was me saying, hey, I want to buy something from you. So it's a little bit easier, in my opinion. And I actually met up with a guy who had some experience in real estate, and I started like just networking with him and talking to him every day. I'm like, hey, I found this deal. I underwrote it. And then fast forward to September of 2020, he called me one day. This is how the first deal came about. He called me one day and he's like, hey, man, I got a deal. You know, that deal I told you I had under contract with somebody? Yeah, he backed out. He was the operating partner. We're closing in a week. Do you want in? And I was like, yeah, man, I'll call you back tomorrow. And then I was like, I got off the phone with him and I just like, in my mind, I'm like, dude, like, call him back now. You know you want to get into the deal. Like,
yeah,
whatever.
If you're
so
gonna
I called back, got into the deal. I'm going to freaking do it, right? And the good thing about this is that this deal was like 20 minutes from my the insurance office that I had. So I was in a suit every day, so I could change from the suit. Didn't go to the park in the suit, trust me. And get into regular clothes to go over to the park. But that's how I got into real estate. And then we started, we went on a buying frenzy from there.
Gotcha. And that first park was in Orlando, I assume?
No, it was Orlando? In Cocoa, Florida, like Brevard County. Yeah.
Got it. I want to take you back. Where'd you find that list? You said you just got a list of Florida mobile home park owners.
I actually found it online. I found it online. I looked it up. And then I had the list from the boot camp, the mobile home park boot camp. They give you a list. It's not very good, but I just started calling.
Yeah. What was your initial script? Like with no training, you're just calling people that own mobile home parks. Hey, I want to buy your park or?
Yeah. I think my initial script was something like, hey, Matt, this is Derek Vickers. I'm a local investor here in Orlando. Just wanted to see if you'd be interested in selling your park. I mean, it was that. I ended up working through it after I started underwriting deals and started to learn the lingo a little bit more, but that was the gist of it at the beginning.
Yeah, got it.
And then I would ask questions. I would find out how many lots, what the utilities were and all that. But it was a bit wonky in the beginning for sure.
Yeah, I think what I love about that story, though, is like you just kind of jump in, you figure it out from there. I come across so many people that want to read the books. And I was actually at a meetup the other day. I was speaking at a meetup and this girl comes up and talks to me, is like, how did you get involved? All this kind of stuff. And I was like, I don't know. I just started meeting people. And this guy goes, no. First, you need education. And I'm like, yeah, you're the guy that's probably never done a deal because you're just sitting there learning all day.
Yeah, dude. I mean, and people like that, I'm telling you, like I was making fun of somebody that had like commented on something stupid in our Facebook group. And I'm like, dude, this just sounds like the classic guy who has been to the same seminar for 10 years, has been going back and doesn't have a deal in the real estate portfolio because so I think it's a good and a bad thing for me, like to take action without like, like knowing
Yeah,
anything, because it can create problems for sure. But I would rather have
yep.
those problems than the ones of not doing anything.
That's right. That's right. So, first park you acquire, everything went smooth. You just scaled to 1 million parks after that, right?
Oh yeah, everything went smooth. There was nothing crazy that happened at all. The first park was a freaking disaster. It was literally if someone gave you the 10, if you, I don't have this ebook, but I might create it. If there's 10 things you do not want to buy in a mobile home park, this would have checked this off. Park owned homes, vacant park owned homes, no titles to the trailers. The owner was renting rooms. It's a mix of septic and public utilities. Let's see what else. In place cap rate was like, I don't know, a 3 cap, like, because they weren't collecting anything. Like, so all those things that people would say, like, hey, don't buy this, we ended up buying that. And we were able to take all those park owned homes and convert them. We were able to convert them to tenant owned homes. And the park, we bought it for $425,000, and then is about 9 months later reappraised for 1.75. So we crushed it on that deal.
Yeah. So, might be new terms for some of our listeners out there. Park owned home, tenant owned homes. What's the difference?
Sorry about that. Yeah, so a park-owned home is that if I buy a property, I own the home. So I'm essentially renting it, just as you would rent like a duplex or an apartment building. I am responsible for the maintenance. I'm responsible for the leaky toilets. I'm responsible for stuff breaking. A tenant-owned home is when the tenant has the title to the home, they own the home, and we're only responsible for the infrastructure to the park, the plumbing and water up to the trailer. The electrical infrastructure, the roads and things like that. And they just pay lot rent after that.
So most real estate investors are used to, I buy the house, I buy the condo, I buy the property, and I rent it back to the tenant. But in mobile home parks, you're ultimately trying to get the park owned home to a tenant owned home. Why in mobile home parks is it different? Why do we not want to own the park owned home?
Yeah, so the main reason that nobody, like, I hear people not talking about this because they talk about the maintenance, but the bank doesn't cap the park owned home rent. Like,
right.
The park's not going to be valued on that. So they're only going to value the lot rent, right? So if you can reduce your expenses by not having to fix the toilets, if you can now get lot rent, and now the bank is actually going to value just the lot rent, then, the valuation on your park is going to be bigger. Because I think at some point they'll start, capping the park owned home rent, maybe some of it on like newer homes, but that's essentially why we want to get to that point. Because the bank, if you have a park, all park owned homes at $1,000 a month or something, the bank is only going to value what you're allocating for lot rent.
Yeah, I think a little history in this industry, like in the late 80s, early 90s, financing on these things were pretty hard to get, right? And I think it was just in the 2000s when they shifted where Fannie and Freddie would actually allow for agency debt on these parks. But to your point, they'll only allow you to have the income of the lot rent used towards that. So if you want to finance it to Fannie and Freddie, I think it's 35% of the homes can only be park owned homes.
35%.
Is that right? You might know that.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
Yeah,
if
it's
I own
35%
100% of
the last time I talked to him.
Yeah, so if I own 100% of the mobile homes in the park, I can't go to agency debt, and agency debt is king in real estate.
For sure.
I'm sure you learned through this acquisition some things to ask for, some things that you would do different. I guess now when you're doing due diligence on a park and when you're kind of understanding what you want to offer for this park, what are some of the common things you look for?
Yeah, so I'm looking at the infrastructure heavy. The deal we just punted on, the septic guy called the owner and was scared because he thought I was going to call the health department on him. And he said he felt like he was being interrogated by me. And I'm like, well, you were. And I'm probably going to call you back. I was going to call you back and ask more questions, right? Because when you there's specific little nuance things that you can't necessarily learn in a book. Now, if you have someone with experience like Matt or I, and I'm like right beside you, I can tell you what to ask, because just from mistakes, right, you're going to know, like, you need to know what's going on with the infrastructure. Like, because a lot of these parks were developed in the 40s. We have parks that were developed in 46, 48, in the 50s. Wow. The infrastructure is old. It's inevitably going to go bad. You just need to know and need to understand, like, how much CapEx and how much extra cash am I going to have to raise up front, or bring if you're buying with your own money up front. So when this does happen, you're going to have the money set aside to do it. Because if you're bringing money from investors, Matt, you invest with me. What happens when I give you that call and I'm like, hey, Matt, by the way, we screwed up. We have a problem. I need more money from you. You don't want that to happen. And so that's why you do heavy due diligence and learn these things. And so you can at least have an idea of what could potentially be coming. But I check the infrastructure heavy, even if it's public utilities, because there may be lift stations, at some of our parks that were developed in the 40s. I bet the water lines are made out of like 8 different things, because they've been patched up over the years with God knows what. If we dug it all up. And so that's important, because that can eat your cash flow.
How do you do the due diligence on that? Do you actually dig up the pipes and look at it? Or I know you're asking questions from the operators, but do you have a certain procedure you go through to look at that?
Well, as far as the pipes, I mean, we can get a plumbing company out and look at them, but it's really, if we have someone come out and talking to the residents and asking about like water pressure issues, or if there's leaks places, because water pressure issues, that typically indicates that there's an issue, and it could be a big issue. Like we have city water and city sewer in this park. Oh, nothing. If you're in the mobile home park industry, the coveted city water and city sewer, because people think nothing goes wrong with it. Well, that's not true, because there's still problems with it. So this was a small 30 space park, and we had a water pressure issue on one side of the park. Well, to fix that side was like 40 G's, to do it right. And then to do the whole park, it was like 65 or 70 G's. So it's like, you might as well do the whole park, but it's an expensive CapEx, issue. Now, with that being said, at that point, when we bought that park, my due diligence process wasn't great, right? But that wouldn't have prevented me from buying the park, because that park's worth 3 times what we paid for it. So,
right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I, in one of my single families too, it's obviously hooked up to city water, city sewer. And I learned very quickly that you own the infrastructure at the street to the house as well. So long story short, we had a backup issue, pipe burst, and I'm like, oh, we'll just call the city. They'll come fix that. No. You own the pipe from the street all the way up to the property as well.
Yeah.
Very expensive.
Yeah. And you never know. It's very expensive. And you never know. Like we had a park. I don't even know. Well, I guess I do know now, but so we bought this park and it had, I don't know, maybe 15 vacant units. So our plan was to go in and rehab some, sell some as like for investors or somebody to come in and rehab, and then they could sell themselves. But they had no electric. So we had to basically, bring the electric poles up to code, and they had to put new meter banks, and where the meter goes, they had to bring all that up to code. So come to find out that the city has some new effing ordinance to where the basically all the meter banks and all the poles need to be brought from the back of the lot to up to the front of the lot, and all the lines that are above ground have to go underground. There has to be new transformers put in on the park. And so this issue ended up costing, I don't know, a couple $100,000, almost $200,000, because we had to pay for it. Same kind of thing. And not to mention, by the time that went in permitting, and by the time it got done, it was 18 months. So we couldn't even do anything. We couldn't execute the business plan for almost 2 years.
Yeah, we just walked away from a deal for same issue. Like there was some electrical work that needed to be done at the pad site. And I forget all the specific details, but it was going to cost like $200,000 on a park that cost 1.5 million. So easily walked away from that deal just because that kills you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now we're just talking due diligence at this point. Operations is a whole different level of execution need. You acquire a property day one. Like, what does your operations playbook look like from there?
Yeah, so a lot of it is prep work. A lot of it is prep work and getting everything into your rent manager and understanding what's there. What we didn't do well in the beginning was actually understand what is there, who is in each unit, because if you're buying from mom and pop, a lot of like we had people that were living there that weren't like, the rent roll was different that he had than he gave us. So it's good to kind of hash that stuff out in the beginning. So you know what you have, you know where your park owned homes are, you've got all that stuff in line, because otherwise the transition is going to be a little wonky when you go in. So that's number one, making sure all your data and stuff is clean going in as best as it can be. Two, just rudimentary stuff. Your team needs to change the bills over. If there's a water bill with the city, get it changed over in your name. First park. Here's a story for you, Matt. That first park we bought. So the owner, the day of closing, he told the city to turn the frickin' water off. So first day we closed, tenants don't have water. It's 5 o'clock. No one's at the city.
Wow.
They were real happy with me. That, and just the utility bills, the trash bills. I mean, we had sometimes we didn't change the trash bill over, and we learned quick. I went to the park a week later, and it's like piles of trash there. So making sure that you do that kind of just small stuff going in, because whether you're increasing lot rent, whether you have to doing other value add things, where typically people that are, I don't know how to say this well, but there's people that don't like that. Like there's people that don't like you coming in and improving the park. So you're going to be dealing with those problems. Like fix all your stuff that you can, so you can just focus on dealing with those problems and executing the business plan, because then everything's a fire drill, right? Like you're just dealing with stuff and everything's an emergency all the time. So we're doing that. And when we execute the business plan, standard things we do is we go in and pave the roads. If they're not already paved, we stripe the roads. It's a cheap thing that just makes the roads look so much better. Just put striping on. It costs a couple of $1,000. Vinyl fence. We typically like the white vinyl fence with the flat one, not the, like the flat, privacy fence. And then we do a new sign, and then we also do these solar lights that we really like. Cost about $1,500 a pole. They give the property a little bit of a modern look, so we like that. And then siding and skirting on the homes where we can control it. If we buy a park and the people own their homes, like there's not much we can do there. And then we'll gradually start enforcing rules, because as we enforce rules, the owner's going to tell you who the knuckleheads are in the park. Okay. You're going to figure that out. But as you increasingly start enforcing rules, those people are going to rear their heads because they're not going to like it. Like we had a guy in a park. He literally, I should have sent you this picture so you could pop it up on the show. He literally was running the mechanic shop out of the place. He had like 5 cars there. You couldn't even pull into the back of the park. So he didn't like rule enforcement.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting that you said that. So we follow a similar strategy. We actually go around and kind of set rules first. We are lenient on a little bit of cars. You got a lawnmower in your front yard, things like that. We're pretty staunch and pretty strict on no pay, no stay. So if you're not paying, then you do need to get out. But the first thing we do is not necessarily flip park-owned homes or renovate or infill lots. It is try to clean the place up. and make it look and feel better. So there's a book out there, Freakonomics. They talk about the crime spree that happened in the 1970s to 1990s in New York. And two things they did were, one, clean up the graffiti on the subways, because if you're in an environment that looks cleaner, you're going to act a different way. And two is they started enforcing little rules like the don't jump the turnstile, because when you jump that, you have a disrespect for the environment that you're entering. And everybody thinks it's stop and frisk and it's more law enforcement. It's all this. It's like, no, if you up the level of environment that you're in, you're typically going to raise your standards. And then if you enforce the little things that make you want to respect the environment a little bit better, then chances are you're going to treat it better. So anything you would add to that, or anything from your experience that you've seen from those standpoints?
Hey, fellow investors, before we dive into our next segment of the show, I wanted to take a quick moment to talk to you about a fantastic opportunity for you to invest with me. As you know, here at Ice Cream with Investors, I'm passionate about real estate investing and helping you navigate the exciting world of wealth creation through real estate. And that's why, for the first time, I'm thrilled to tell you about an opportunity for you to invest alongside of me. Over the past 3 years, I've been investing in multifamily, mobile home parks, car washes. I've even become the bank and lent out money to fellow real estate investors on a short-term basis. And now you can come join me. If you would like to jump on a call and learn more about this opportunity, head to icecreamwithinvestors.com/invest and find a time for us to connect. And now back to the show.
Yeah, I mean, totally. When you start to up the standard of the environment of the park, as I mentioned before, like the people that don't like that, or the people that you probably don't want in the park anyways, aren't going to like that, and they're not going to want to comply with that. And but yeah, like once the community sees you doing that, then they start doing that. They'll pick up they won't leave the trash out. They won't leave the bag of trash out that they would typically leave out. They may start picking that up if you have good people, right? And because the consensus is like, oh, old owner didn't care, so I don't freaking care. But when you come in and start showing that, you're totally right, man. I mean, it's like it changes the overall, exactly what you said. Like it lifts the level of the environment there.
Yeah, and I think one of the common misconceptions I get when we're talking about mobile home parks is the stigma around it, right? And I'm not saying that we don't deal with bad people in these parks or people that cause disruption and things like that. But one of the other things that I've observed is transitioning park-owned homes to tenant-owned homes. Somebody that rents to somebody that owns. When they start owning a piece of land and owning the property, then they're typically not going to allow the knucklehead around the corner to do things that are dangerous or bring in his parties at 2 a.m. and things like that. And they will raise those concerns. And I do believe that at that point, it's on us as operators to make sure that we address those concerns to show, hey, we've improved the place. We now have rules. If people don't follow the rules, we will go enforce the rules.
Yeah, totally. I mean, you would be surprised at like the difference it makes when people start owning their homes, because what you said is exactly what happens, right? Because they take more responsibility for the environment now. When they're renting, it's just like, whatever, I don't care. But now that they're living there, they want it to be clean. They want it to be safe. And they want to get the guy who's having the party at 3 a.m., which we don't want there. We want clean, safe places for families. I used to be the guy in college partying at 3 a.m., so I get it, but not in a community.
Yeah. Now, do you all do any RV parks with your portfolio?
Not currently, but I am definitely looking at some. I have some that we're pretty close to come, like getting owners to sign contracts on. I love the idea of RV parks. These are a little bit different. They're not transient like resort style RV parks. These are long-term RV parks where people actually, they live and they stay for an extended period of time, because I like that. The transient, it's a little bit different of a business model. I don't really like that. I haven't owned it, so I guess I can't really say, but just looking at it from a 10,000 foot view, I don't know. I just don't really like that, but the long-term aspect of it, I really like.
Where are you finding the long-term RV parks? Are they mostly in Florida, or are you looking other places?
Mainly in the Southeast, like Gulf Coast, Florida, all over. I mean, there's, some of them that you find are really small and it's like, 10, maybe it's not worth it. But in those places around water, typically.
Yeah. Yeah. I've never owned anything in that space. What kind of interests you about that space? I don't know much about it.
Because it just runs typically like an MH, runs like an MH. I mean, yes, someone could leave. You don't have, in Florida, like some of the regulatory hurdles you would have to jump over to get someone out that's selling drugs in your park if they own their home. Like even if they're doing something bad in their home, they own the home, they're causing crap because of the prospectus in Florida. Like it could take you a year to get that person out if they're paying their rent. It's hard to do. An RV, I can just get somebody like quick.
How do you address that today in your parks? That type of a situation?
Well, we don't have it now, luckily, at least that we know of, or at least that's causing a lot of problems. We did have so we had an issue when we purchased some of these parks, but they were park-owned homes when we purchased them typically, and we would convert them, and so it was easier to kind of get some of those bad people out because it was park-owned. But if we sold them their house, then it becomes a different ballgame. It gets harder. And, if there's somebody that's doing bad stuff, my thing I would try and do is just buy their house back from them. But a lot of times those people aren't reasonable and they may just be like, screw you, dude. I'm staying here.
Yeah.
So it's definitely difficult to address.
I've heard of people trying to put them on weekly rentals as well, because at a weekly rental, then it classifies, and this might be just a Texas thing. This is the person I was talking to. It classifies them as more of a short-term stay, a hospitality stay versus a long-term tenant with tenant rights. Is that a strategy you all have looked at, or talk me through that?
No. Are you talking about even if they own the home?
Yeah, see, that's the thing. These were park-owned homes, so I'm pretty sure that's the differentiator factor, isn't it?
That's a big differentiating factor, because if they own the home, then so there's two sections of law in Florida. Chapter 723 is mobile home park law. So as soon as they own their mobile home, they come from here over to here. And so it's a completely different set of rules. Your eviction notices need to be, there's a longer time period that they get. You have to mail a notice. You have to post one on the door, and then you have to do 3. So you have to mail it, and I think you have to mail it twice. It's crazy. It's crazy.
Yeah. Yeah. Send it through carrier pigeon. Fax it.
Pretty much, dude. Fax it, page them.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, Derek, I want to transition us now into our last round. We call this the 4 toppings. Our first one is, what is your favorite book, or what is a book you've read recently that's given you a paradigm shift?
Well, oh man, I read, people have read, you talk about Think and Grow Rich. That was a great book, but really a turning point book for me was the 10X rule. I know I've talked about Grant Cardone, but that book just taught me that, like, Derek, you're not working hard enough. You need to go take more action. And then things started to happen for me. So it was a shift in mindset that was like, hey, I was just underestimating actually the amount of effort it actually took for me to do things. So that book changed my life, dude. I mean, that really taught me that, like, I need you have to do more to get the results that you're after.
Yeah. And if you shoot higher, then chances are you'll think different, which will force you to act different. And if you act different, then chances are you're going to get to your original goal faster, is what I took.
Well, yeah, exactly. Because exactly. So, and I still do this because sometimes I fall back into the little baby mode. And I'm like, all right, if we were going to get to $10 billion, right? Or I'll throw it out there. I'm like, hey, I get with my team. I'm like, hey guys, what actions would we be taking then? I'm like, damn, well, dude, we couldn't be doing this. I'd have to be going and knocking on the door to freaking, whoever. I'm like, damn, that's a big move. Like, so it gets, and we need to hire this. I'm like, okay, so let's hire this. Like, let's do that. Right. And so it's that shift that makes me like, think differently. So I start putting in those different pieces that I may be reluctant to add, or the things I may be reluctant to do, because if you really want to get to your goal, then do it.
Yeah. Yeah. Our second one is, what is the best piece of advice you've ever received?
The best piece of advice I've ever received. Well, I think it was to work on yourself, fix yourself first. Because I was a mess when I was in college and high school and I was a mess. And to work on yourself spiritually, to work on yourself mentally, and then kind of the rest starts to take care of itself. So like invest in yourself first to learn something, and then, kind of invest in your business, and then invest into real estate to like cash flowing assets. But really just like, hey, dude, investing in yourself is a big deal, right? There has never been any money I have spent on a book, a program, whatever. Maybe the program wasn't that great. Maybe the book wasn't that great, but I took one freaking thing from it. And I'm like, okay, this was worth the $30. This was worth $1,000. And I hear people all the time that they're like, oh, I paid $1,000 and this didn't work. I'm like, dude, like, I'm sure there was one thing that you took away from it. You're just negative, dude. Like, get out of here. I've never spent money on myself that didn't bring a benefit to me in anything.
Yeah. Yeah. I think society is kind of over-indexed on this, like invest in crypto, invest in real estate, invest in 401k, all this kind of stuff. And if you really realize that you've got a lot of leakage in your own environment. Like if you're overweight, then just get up an hour earlier and go walk. If you're struggling with learning something, spend an hour a day just trying to go learn it. And I hate to make it sound so easy because it's not. I get it. Like getting up and doing difficult things is hard. But at the end of the day, there's no magic pill that's going to change all of that until you've changed what's inside of you first.
For sure. For sure. And like, just to, not to get off on this, but like, it was a gradient for me. I had to start changing myself a little by little. So I started getting up at 6:30, then it was 6, and then it was 5, and then it was 4:30, then it was 4, then it was 3:45. And then, just consistently doing those little hard things every day, it just gives you so much more confidence going into the day. Like when I work out, like I'm about to die when I'm almost done with the workout, right? And so I know there's not much harder that I'm going to do. I try to get my heart rate up to 180 every workout and at least touch it for a little bit. And I know during the day, I'm not going to feel like that the rest of the day.
Yeah. Yeah. 180 is pretty high.
That's high. You're cooking.
Our third one is, what are you most proud of in your life?
I'm most proud of and I want to say the person that I became, because I got a long way to go, dude. I'm nowhere near where I want to go, but just from where I came from, the problems that I had in college, partied too much, those issues. And like, I had friends that ended up not getting out of that and like, were in pretty bad shape, lost some of them, that I was able to persevere and pull myself out of that deep, dark pit that I was in. And, I'm genuinely happy today. Like there's stuff that happens and stuff, but like, I'm happy, but like, just happy, like I'm ready to go because I'm like moving and accomplishing things and just getting out of that pit that I was in. I'm proud of that.
That's awesome. Well, our fourth and final one is, if you could sit down and eat a bowl of ice cream with anyone, dead or alive, who would it be and why?
Yeah, man, so many, but first one that pops in my head is Andrew Carnegie. Just because this dude came from like freaking like I mean, I think he was like sleeping on a dirt floor in Scotland. Like he was dirt poor. And his family, he moved to America and then was able to build the U.S. Steel, which became U.S. Steel, like the biggest empire. And he was the richest man in the world. It was like J.P. Morgan bought that business for $480 million or something, which would have been, I don't know, hundreds of billions in today's money. And so the fact, that was a different time. That was like a really wild, wild west kind of time. I'm obsessed with the Gilded Age. It's such a cool age to study and how they did business. But just the fact that he was able to do that, right? I just think it would be fascinating to learn like the actual lessons that he learned and how he built his character to get to that point, because you do not get to that point just by like the person you like. You got to be some kind of person, and then you develop into some kind of person. And I would just love to see like, hey, what were you like here? And like, what did you do to build your character up to get to the point that you were? That'd be a cool conversation to have.
Yeah. And I can't believe no one has mentioned Andrew Carnegie on the show yet, because I agree. A true American Titan right there.
Yes.
Well, Derek, fantastic conversation. If our listeners wanted to reach out to you, learn more about you, or just connect about mobile home parks, where is the best place we can point them?
Yeah, so you can go to, you can find me on any social media platform at Derek Vickers 885. I am not hard to find at all on every social media platform. You can also check out the MHP Show podcast. I do a new episode every week. Talk about everything mobile home parks on that show, so you can check that out. You can also go to victoryrealestategroup.com and check us out. But if you go to the social media, go to Instagram, you can go to the link tree. There's links to all of our free stuff we have. We have a free course on mobile home parks. We have a free ebook and all kinds of stuff. So go check us out.
Awesome. We will link those in the show notes. And Derek, thanks for coming on the show.
Thank you for listening to Ice Cream with Investors. If you like what we serve you here, it would mean the world to me if you would like, subscribe, and leave a review on your favorite podcast app.